Mayor Pro Tem, we're ready.
I'd like to call this meeting to order of the March 23rd, 2023 City Council meeting. I'll just be presiding for as long as it takes for our mayor to show up. He'll be here pretty soon. He had another engagement, but he'll be here very soon. I'd like to, we're going to first do the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance, and the invocation tonight will be done by the Reverend Rudy Villarreal. Please stand.
Thank you. Please join me in prayer. Father, we thank you and praise you, for you are loving, good, and gracious. We thank you for sustaining and providing for us, for the many blessings you have given us personally in our city, state, and nation. We thank you for our elected officials, businesses, churches, families, and individuals that make our city a great place to live. We pray for this meeting tonight. Give our city council wisdom and guidance on the items before them. May every decision be righteous in your sight for our benefit and for your glory. We pray for your continued faithfulness as you protect and lead your people in your city. We pray these things in your Son's name, the King of Kings, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
We're going to start next with our public hearings. This is the second public hearing on number 2 to give all interested persons the right to appear and be heard on the proposed voluntary annexation of Michael and Catherine Arena for property located on Farm Road 1560 near its intersection with Braun Road and described as 4.719 acres out of the J.P. Miller Survey Abstract 861 and out of the MMV Muscus Survey Abstract 467 in Bexar County, Texas. Bexar County BCAT property tax ID number 236993. Do we have anyone who has opted to speak?
Mayor Pro Tem, we do not. If you could just state the time of when we're opening and then state the time of when we're closing, please.
Thank you. It is 7:03. We open and then we close at 7:03. The second public hearing, starting at 7:04, is to give all interested persons the right to appear and be heard on Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 58, Article 3, Minors, Division 1 curfew to continue the juvenile curfew regulations for minors under 17 years of age and over 10 years of age, and providing for a triennial review of the ordinance. Do we have anyone to speak on this?
Mayor Pro Tem, nobody signed up for item number 2 of the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. Then this public hearing is closed at 7:04 p.m. Now we're going to open session, citizens to be heard. Do we have anyone who has?
Yes, we do, Mayor Pro Tem. We have Mrs. Tammy Poynton who signed up.
Ms. Poynton, you may come up.
Good evening. I'm Tammy Poynton. I'm owner of Helotes Country Club. I know quite a few of y'all. I know I'm only allowed 3 minutes, which is not a lot of time, so I'm going to read from this just so I don't forget. My family has owned a business since 1978 and the surrounding properties as well, a total of 5 acres, all of which I pay property taxes accordingly. And I used to be a regular attendance to these meetings in the past as a concerned citizen, as well as a concerned and business owner. I've not attended in an extremely long time because of work and because of never getting feedback when I speak at these meetings. In realization, Helotes Country Club was established in 1978, and the city of Helotes did not incorporate till 1981. So needless to say, we were in business before Helotes incorporated. Helotes began with 2.8 square miles, and now it's 7.11 square miles. I own 5 acres in the center of Helotes. I have a business that regular Helotians frequent, and I hear all their concerns, the older population that comes to my business early in the mornings, their concerns, issues, complaints, etc. for a long time, and there hasn't been anything positive, and it's kind of disturbing. So with that being said, I would just present a few issues which are theirs as well as mine, in hopes that they do not go on deaf ears. First, is forever that I speak about is the Helotes stank, which is the smell that goes through Helotes. It's the methane foul smell that has overtaken Old Town Helotes every day, especially in the evening. If you live in the Helotes area, you're familiar with the topic and you're familiar with the smell. This affects my business in the most disgusting manner possible, and new customers think something I can control. This has been an issue since before my father passed away over 11 years ago. Although Iron Horse subdivision was established in 1993, it has taken precedence and already had their system updated. It's kind of a slap in the face for us in Old Town Helotes to still deal with this smell. This is by far causing Old Town to lose new visitors. It is disgusting. That's all I can really say on that one. Number 2 is the unnerving news that I heard from an employee in Helotes that there was a new person hired through Helotes, and his job, which this employee told me, was to make money for Helotes however he could do it. So that was kind of unnerving. I kind of know the person's name who was hired. I don't know their position. That was very disturbing. So helping the community grow, there's a lot better ways than to go around and nitpick and get money that way than it is to promote Old Town Helotes in a lot of better ways, which we've talked about in the past. It's leaving a very sour taste in your community. I know I have a short amount of time, so I'm going to move on. The next one is market days. I loved market days when it started. If you have looked at the map of market days,
I'm sorry. If you would send your notes to us, to the city secretary, she'll get them to all of us.
okay.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
No, Mayor Pro Tem, that was it.
Okay, thank you. And at this time, I will give the meeting back over to the mayor who is here.
Thank you. My apologies. I had to give an invocation at an event, and believe it or not, there was traffic on Bandera Road. So I apologize for my brief tardiness. I know we're not supposed to comment or discuss topics, but I couldn't help, and I just, as a statement of fact, the sewage and the odor smell has not been dealt with in Iron Horse Canyon. It's still an issue, and this overall issue is part of a SAWS project that is currently being done. There's a several mile underground drilling where they're going to be taking out lift stations and putting gravity feed. They're working the way from north of the city. They'll be coming through Old Town Helotes. It'll be coming another stub of it coming from the Helotes Park area and solving at the same time the Iron Horse Canyon, and it'll be drifting together. And some of that is going to be connecting into the TxDOT. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly on the junction.
Yeah, it's going to come all the way to the Riggs Road, and then it will also add that other stub out like you were talking about at the park.
This is a project that was approved and came through city council almost 2 years ago, but it is a multi-year project. It is a multi-million-dollar project. SAWS has been on it, and it falls under SAWS, but it is something that we have put great importance on, and the people who should know that. It is unfortunately not something we can just fix just like that, and it is something that does plague many areas in Helotes, and therefore that project is currently underway. So I wish I could say more than just patience, but it is. Absolutely, and I will meet with you on other issues as well there. I believe we have citizens to be heard, so that brings us to the consent agenda. Looking for a motion and a second to approve consent agenda item number 5.
Mayor, I move that we'll approve consent agenda number 5 as written.
Okay, motion by Merchant, second by
I'll second that.
Massey. With no discussion needed, all in favor of approving consent agenda item number 5, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. This time, we're looking for a motion and a second to discuss and take action on item number 6 as written.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we discuss and take action on item number 6 as written.
Motion by Stone, second by
I'll second.
Merchant. Councilmember.
Well, I've gotten a few questions, and Selena was at the P and Z meeting, so she can also provide context, but I recommend that we approve this development. If anybody is driven by this site, it's based on existing buildings. I don't know if the applicant is here tonight. Would you like to come up and answer any questions? Or, I'm sorry,
No, that's fine. If you had specific comments, and we certainly please come up to the podium so we can answer any questions. If you have a direct question, please go ahead and address.
Okay, I didn't know if that was the role of the
Sure.
mayor, still
No,
learning.
no, that's all right.
Good evening. My
thank
name is
you for
Marek
coming.
Szyszynski. I am the owner of Marek Solutions. We are a design build company in charge to get this development going.
Okay.
So I am really up to date. Any questions you have, I should be able to answer.
Well, I think the confusion at P and Z, and as the chairman said, they kept going in a cul-de-sac, in a loop, is that they wanted more specifics, but the challenge is, and correct me if I'm wrong, misunderstanding, there's existing buildings there. So if it was just an empty lot, you would have approached it very differently.
Correct.
But they're using existing structures. They're still going to be approved. I have it in my notes, all these other governing bodies. So all we are doing as P and Z and now council is just approving the overall concept and site plan, which I think, in my opinion, would be a great addition and change for that very unattractive, if I may say that. Anything you do is going to be an improvement in that site. So if you want to provide more context in terms of what you're planning on doing, and if you've made any changes or flushed any information out since the P and Z meeting.
The only change we made on the plans, we removed some stone decorative elements that we had on the buildings. So we presented few buildings, I guess 2 buildings with some decorative stone and some other without. And the question for me was, are you going to do it everywhere or just here? And I said, we're still in the process. This is just the accent. And it was, question was to me, so you don't know? I said, well, not really. Then another question was, the driveway maybe not wide enough for truck firefighters to get through. And we knew that, but we will have a discussion with this, with the fire marshal, not. So we
that
just
will come
left
at a
it just the
later
way
time.
it is for now without making any changes. Right now on the plans, we make it a little bit wider. Another question was, there was 2 parking spaces right by the entrance. And I couldn't say if we're gonna leave those or not, because that would be up to the city to decide if we can leave those spaces or we're gonna have to change them. And again, somebody mentioned that, well, another thing that you don't know. I said, yeah, kind of don't know. Another thing was mentioned that how many tenants we plan to have, and I couldn't answer that also. Because the idea is to lease those spaces per square foot, so we don't know if we're gonna have 5, 10, or maybe just 2 or 3, preferably 3 tenants. So I couldn't answer that too, and I guess since I couldn't answer those questions, it was denied. Unless it was something else that I don't know of.
So to clarify, we have a conceptual idea. You can't state how many tenants you're going to have until they actually apply and you do the finish out. And so really the appropriateness of the approval is whether or not this concept is acceptable to council. The questions that seems like some of the questions that P&Z had were beyond the scope of what was and should have been appropriate for P&Z. And that will handle and be discussed, like, for example, the 2 parking spots, as well as square footage will be handled later on in the approval of the actual building documents, et cetera. So I encourage council to look at this as what it is, just a approval of a concept. And then we'll deal with building permits and plans and et cetera thing, space requirements and dimensions for driveway for the fire truck at a later date in its appropriate time.
I would like to also only mention that none of the building is going to be moved, even an inch. Everything is going to stay just the same it is. And we're not planning to build anything extra. So it's just a big renovation from the outside shells. That's what we're doing at this point. Each individual tenant will submit own finish out permits, plans for separate approvals.
Okay. Good. Good. Councilman?
I was just curious why the P and Z voted the way they did, and it's been explained, so it's just a concept. I'm okay with this.
I have, so you don't have any idea at all what type of business would be renting these out or
We
leasing?
do. We have a whole list of what is allowed in the zoning, and only what is allowed in the zoning will be rented.
Okay.
In other words, small commercial spaces. We've been thinking about upholstery shop, and maybe plumbing services, maybe some electrical services. This is not going to be designed for customers really to go over there and do the business.
That's what I was wondering.
It's more for those business owners to have a commercial address and do the business from.
I see, okay. Well, and I agree with Councilmember Sons that anything would be better than what's there right now, so. But this is a concept, and I know that whatever you all end up with is gonna, because it's gonna go through so many reviews anyway, it's gonna be fine, so
Correct.
I'm for this.
Thank you.
Without any further discussion, all in favor of approving item number 6 as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. At this point, we're looking for a motion, a second, to discuss and take action on item number.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you, sir. I'm sorry. Motion to discuss and take action on item number 7 is written.
Mr. Go ahead.
Oh, I don't mind at all. I'd like to make a motion to discuss, take action on item number 7 is written.
Okay. Motion by Merchant, second by
Second.
Zones. Okay. Mr. Merchant?
I see Corey's in the building
And a door.
and a door. Very good. My question is this number for real?
Yes, that's not to exceed. That's the number not to exceed.
That looks like a lot of work over there.
You're thinking that the.
No, this is not the final. This is just for them.
Just do the plan.
This is for them to
Oh,
design the plans for us to, for us to go for bid,
Yes.
the bid documents.
It's
No,
just-
there's, if the rest of the memo explains that actually the full project can range between 700 to $1 million for the full project.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Okay,
Yes.
So that seems like even a lot. Okay. That was my question. Good.
Okay. Councilmember?
So I actually, because I am not an engineer, consulted with a good friend, a family friend of ours who's an engineer and is familiar with this part of Helotes. And he, of course, is familiar with your firm and had wonderful things to say about your team, which was good to hear since you are our city engineer. One of the points he made is that the project is complex because Circle A Trail especially, because it feeds into the French Creek. So I know for citizens, this may sound like a lot of money. Almost $200,000 sounds like a lot of money to me. Hopefully it will not come close to that. But I was told that there's a lot of complex math and estimates that go into the engineering, so we do not have, and drainage analysis, so we are not creating problems for other homes, many homeowners along French Creek. So even though this looks high to me, costs are rising, and I understand that you have to cover yourself, and I'm assuming you went, that it could be under, obviously not to exceed. So I support this as written. And our residents, I didn't talk to anybody over in Helotes Park Estates, but one of our citizens on Paragon Road is very thankful the city is doing this, and I reached out to that community.
So also a point of clarification, this project has been in need for many, many years. And if I'm not mistaken, we also separated out some funds from ARPA towards these two projects.
Actually,
We
we
were
were-
taken from the tax, we switched it over to the
To the
street maintenance tax.
correct.
And so the funding is in place for designated use for these items, so it really will have a non-effect on our overall budget.
Correct. It doesn't affect the general fund.
Okay. Councilmember?
Wasn't he the second or? was
He
it-
started.
Oh, he
Good.
started. Yeah. No, I agree. I'm glad that this is finally on the agenda because I know I do live in Helotes Park Estates, and I do know about the Circle A Trail problem. And I've had a lot of citizens come to me, talk to me about it, and it has been on, it seems like it's been on the list to do for a good 4 years at least. And because of the money situation, now that we have it, I'm glad that it's, and we just need to get this thing moving, get it fixed. So I'm definitely for this.
Okay. Well, with no other discussion, all in favor of approving item number 7 as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. At this point, we'll entertain a motion and a second to discuss and take action on the comprehensive annual financial report presentation. Looking for a motion?
I'll make a motion. We discuss and take action on the fiscal and
Motion by Merchant, second by
I'll second that.
Massey. Take it away.
Good evening, council, citizens, and as well as staff of the city. I know I've got a PowerPoint, I believe Selena's pulling up for me. So my name is Kim Roach, and I'm with the firm Armstrong, Vaughn and Associates. I'm happy to be here with, certainly just wanted to go over a few selected highlights within your audit report. Okay, next slide. So first, just a quick summary of some of our required communication. A lot of this is unchanged from previous years. We did issue an unmodified opinion. That's essentially the best we can give. What that means is that the financials that are prepared internally by management are materially correct. You all did receive the Certificate of Achievement for Financial Reporting. That's based on the 2021 fiscal year audit report. But essentially then the FY22 audit report will also be submitted to the GFOA to see if that certificate is received again. Additionally, we also are required just to go over your significant estimates. There's actually no change in your significant estimates from previous years. The reason why they're sensitive is because estimates just mean just that. They're estimated and they're not being able to tie down to anything. So there obviously were room for manipulation. However, we feel like all the estimates of the city are very reasonable based on industry and based on the information that comes from the Texas Municipal Retirement System. We also had no findings, sorry. That's okay. We had no findings or recommendations for suggestions of improvement of your internal controls as they currently are. And then finally, you did comply with the Public Funds Investment Act. Okay, now we're good. Just some selected financial numbers. As you may recall from previous years, you are actually required to report the financial statements in 2 different methods. The first one is called the government-wide statements, and what that does is regardless of the type of fund, it takes the entire city as a whole, and it makes conversions to make it more of where you would be like a business, so that you would include all of your long-term assets as well as all of your long-term liabilities. And so that's just, again, a picture of what the position of the city is if you, again, did not operate as more of a government, but more of a business. Under that methodology, then your total assets were $27.7 million, of which your capital assets, meaning your buildings, your equipment, vehicles, infrastructure, were $9.2 million. That's after accumulated depreciation. And you can see that's about 33% or about a third of your total assets. You did have total liabilities of only $12.2 million. So you can see that that leaves the city with a positive net position of 14.7. Of that total net position, some of it is restricted for certain items as well as being invested within your infrastructure and buildings. And so therefore the unrestricted net position, which is available for general spending, is 1.8 million. Overall, this was an increase from the previous year of 6.4. Now looking specifically more just at the general fund, your total assets there were 10.2 million. The total liabilities for the general fund and deferred inflows were only 4.8 million, which left you with a general fund balance at the end of September 30, 2022 of 5.4 million. Practically everything was considered unassigned, meaning that it can be again available for future operations. And that equates to about 10.2 months of your average operating expenditures. That's actually up from the prior year, which was about 5.6 months. So just in one fiscal year, it nearly doubled the number of your months in your average operating expenditures. Overall, that was an increase of fund balance of 2.3 million. Any questions so far? I know I'm kind of going through these quickly. Just gonna opportunity to show you graphically how the revenues and expenditures for the general fund compared to your budget. So the budget's there in the yellow and your actual is in the red. So you can see, of course, that your revenues exceeded the budget by quite a bit. Primarily that was related to your taxes, more specifically the sales tax revenue that came in for the city is what caused that large variance in a positive manner. Your expenditures came in just under budget. And again, really all departments fell under budget with the exception of just two, but those two departments that exceeded budget were very, very minor. I believe they were less than 1% of the actual expenditures. Also wanted to give you a little bit of a historical picture of the general fund. So you can see your, in this case now revenues are in yellow, expenditures are in red. So you can see that while your expenditures have remained fairly stable and actually gone down just a little, your revenues continue to grow. Again, that's primarily coming from your sales tax revenue that's being brought in for the city. Just to see those graphs in more numbers, you can see here the actual change in your fund balance. So this is all your revenues over your expenditures, again, staying just with the general fund. You can see again, as I mentioned before, your change this year was 2.3 million compared to last year, which was 1.3 million, and 2 years ago, which was only 150,000. As I mentioned, the sales tax revenue is the majority of the reason for the increase, but I wanted to just give this quick graph just so you can see how much things have changed in the last 10 years. So that's why that first row is actually from 10 years ago, from FY13, compared to just 1 year ago, and then your current year for fiscal year 22. So you can see that even though your property tax has also grown in the last 10 years, certainly the sales tax again is the majority of the growth, even just from fiscal year 21 to fiscal year 22, again, that's largely the main area of your growth within the total. That sales tax, actually, Selena, if you'll go back real quick, that sales tax growth actually represents the entire city, not just the general fund. So all these taxes actually represent the entire city. So how much it's equating to each particular area of your sales tax, I wanted to give you those numbers as well. They're not on the slide here, but your general fund increase just from fiscal year 21 to fiscal year 22, again, sales tax only, was actually just right over $1 million. The EDC brought in about 536,000 increase in sales tax, and the street maintenance was actually 909,000. Another key point I want to bring up is all this growth is after any payments back related to your 380 agreements, which are also quite significant related to sales tax. And so this is literally the net that the city is actually keeping representing these increases. And then one last slide, I also wanted to show you this was also an interesting year for you all. These numbers these dates are actually based on the Texas Municipal Retirement System, who operate on a calendar year. So that's why it looks like those are a year old. But the 2021 is currently the most available information we have from TMRS. And so you can see that the city had always been pretty well funded. This is as far as your net pension liability, how much is going to be paid out to employees upon retirement. You'd always been pretty well funded. But this year, in the calendar year 2021, you actually became overfunded. So you now actually have what's considered a net pension asset. Again, a lot of that is subject to change. It's all based on a lot of actuarial assumptions, so it's always a moving target. But basically, the main reason for that change from 20 to 21 came from what they were estimating the investment interest of what your contributions being paid in, what they were going to bring in versus what they actually earned. And so that was the largest reason for that. Any questions on any of that information? No, that was a lot of highlights real quick.
Thank you very much. Couple of points, and then I'll turn it over to council for comments. Obviously, we have gotten in some substantially stronger financially. Some of the quick go-to measure would be months of reserves built in that we are now up to 10.2 months,
Yes, sir.
which is fantastic. But as we had discussed in our meeting and kind of want to touch base on this, that's a snapshot at a single point, which is effective of September 30th. And we have had some adjustments in the last couple of months, obviously with sales tax because of construction and various other issues that are going on there, which has already affected the 10.2, but that does also put us in the position to be able to make needed purchases because you show we have an increase in unrestricted funds,
Correct.
which of course we will be looking at some projects later on in the agenda, and so we'll reserve those comments for that point. But thank you for the analysis and for the audit, and thank you to each department that has been doing a fantastic job at maintaining cost and control. It's been a lot of hard work turning everything and making it to where it is today. Appreciate your efforts. We'll turn it over. Councilmember Massey, do you have comments?
No, it looks like we're doing very, very well, and just as I suspected we would. I don't have anything to ask or say. Thank you very much for all your work.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. This is a fantastic, it's nice to see these numbers in black and white and the hard work of people. Especially impressed with Ms. Tabitha Durr, our financial director, for all that has happened in the last 3 years since I've been on council. Amazing work, right? This audit found no findings or suggestions for improvement. That's damn near perfect. That's awesome. Thank you so much for that. That's what I have to say.
Yes.
Councilmember?
Is this, was I correct in understanding that we're talking about reserves later? Or is that something I can?
You can address reserves. This topic is really about accepting the audit and acknowledging the facts, the factual materials in it. And then what we do with that money is other topics.
Okay, then I will hold that question for later. And Tabby, thank you for all your hard work.
Just a note, that's the second year in a row that we've received the GFOA Certificate of Achievement, the highest level of acknowledgement for our transparency and our accuracy. Tabby, thank you very much for keeping everything down to the penny. And I tell you, I sign I don't know how many hundreds every time there's a transfer at all. It's signed by both the city administrator and myself on every single financial transaction. Just for this reason. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I believe our action on then would be to accept this, correct? So all in favor of accepting the audit as presented in item 8 as written, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. All right, motion carries. At this point, we're looking for a motion and a second to discuss and take action on item number 9 as written. This will be dealing with budgeted amendments.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we discuss and take action on item number 9 as written.
Okay, motion by Sones, second by Massey. Councilmember?
My file is not loading on my iPad, so I'm going to go on my notes. So I hope my notes will do the trick. Technology is great when it works. I am very happy to see the line item for additional police officers. This is why I supported Prop A, worked hard to educate citizens about Prop A, and I just want to thank the residents of Helotes for putting trust in us to do this, because one of the concerns that came up several times as I went door to door for Prop A is, well, how can we trust? There's so much mistrust right now in elected officials, which I understand. It makes me sad. I told many people I'm your neighbor. I wouldn't be telling you that we're going to use these funds to do this if we weren't going to do it. And now here it's on the agenda and we're doing it. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, thank you, City Administrator. Thank you to the HPD for making this happen. It's very encouraging to see this. And then I have questions on the Public Works facility, but I don't want to jump the gun because I think.
Yeah, I'd like to go
And you'll probably answer my questions.
section A, B, and C if we could.
Sure, no, that sounds good.
So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Massey, do you want to make comments, or do you want to have City Administrator make a presentation on A, B, and C, and then you can ask specific? Okay.
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 So we're basically on A, we're talking about doing a budget amendment for our general fund budget. The main reason for that is because our revenues will be increasing due to the sales tax prop that got approved. It is going to bring in about 600 and something $1,000. But if you notice the revenue, the reason we put it in only for 460,000 is because we'll be in a deficit about 200,000 this year from what we proposed or we adopted in our revenues because sales tax has decreased. So we made an assumption on revenues. That's what you do. You do an analysis, and with the trend that it was going, the assumption was that we were going to bring in about 2.8, and we're going to probably now, when we readjusted with the new numbers that have come in the last 3 months, well, the last 4 months technically, we are probably going to bring in about 2.6. So I did an analysis and looked at that, and so I didn't want to overestimate the new revenues, you know what I mean? If we're already going to be short, I don't want to say, okay, we're going to bring in another 6. Yes, we are, but we're going to be short 2. So it will equal to about 400. With that, we are looking at additional, I know it's listed for 4 patrol officers and 1 detective. It's actually really only 4 new positions. We're moving a patrol officer position into a detective position. So on a financial basis and then on the end number, we are not adding 5 additional. We're adding 4. What I did is I also did a 5-year analysis, which you don't have a copy of, but I basically looked at what we can hire this year and what we can hire next year, because it's only half of year cannot support financially with what's coming in to hire more than 4. But next year, because we'll have a full year of income coming in, we can actually increase that and hire between 2 to 4 more officers next year and be able to maintain that for when I looked at it at a 5-year forecast, with also adding in the ARPA, the 5 employees that we have on the ARPA grant.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to make a point of clarification. We already have 2 officers we hired.
Right.
And their boots on the ground already under the ARPA money. That ARPA money only lasts 2 years. And then those salaries will be picked up by the Prop A. So these would be 4 additional positions on top of the 2 that we already have, plus the code compliance officer, who is not hired just to make money for the city of Helotes, is hired to maintain our standards, because we didn't have a dedicated
Correct.
code compliance
We had-
officer. Pardon me? Okay, so
I just want
that's a clarification.
Yeah,
on that. So
with-
we'll have a total of 6 police officers, new
correct, as
positions
a
by the
total.
time we hire these over the next couple of months.
Right.
Of which we are currently advertising.
Yes.
We'll be advertising for after the action.
Correct. As soon as action's taken, we can advertise for it. And we have to remember also when you hire personnel, there's also other items that have to be added, all the benefits and so forth, but also the commodities, bulletproof vest, gun, taser, all that, equipment and so forth that goes with each officer, including also adding for vehicles. So we're looking at adding 2 vehicles in that, and you'll see that in the capital, on the capital side of it.
For those wondering why 2 vehicles for 6 police officers, we have 3 shifts. So 3 officers share a vehicle, 6 officers, 2 vehicles.
And so that's why you see the transferring of the funds from 110,000 from general fund into the capital. That will go into capital, and that will be for the purchase of the two vehicles with all the graphics and lighting and so forth that's needed for those two vehicles. So it's not just the vehicles, it's every equipment attached to it. So basically, that's what that general fund is basically the 460 adding to revenues, and then expenditure, changing the expenditure line item in PD for personnel and commodities, adding 335,000, and then transferring 110 from general fund into, because that capital, the sales tax goes into general fund. So we have to move it into capital where we purchase the actual vehicles. So that is what item A is. You don't want me to go to and explain item B?
Well, item B is closely tied to that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, item B is that, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, item B is basically, yeah, it's tied to that. What the item B is basically changing, I'm sorry, item A is changing the number of personnel, and then item B is the actual budget. So when we adopt the number of personnel, we're authorized to hire within our budget. So anytime we change that, make any transfers or so forth, we have to come back to council to get approval to make those adjustments and be able to hire those additional.
So because A and B are tied, let's deal with any questions on A and B, and then we'll move to C, which is a vastly different topic, so that we can give it due diligence. Councilmember?
So, just to make this clear, you have this all written down in the executive summary, the amounts. We're going to have 4 new patrol officers and 1 detective, so just 4 new positions.
Correct.
Okay. We're going to increase the sales tax revenue to $460,000.
Correct.
We're going to increase the general ledger line item totaling $335,000 to support the additional police personnel. Okay, and that includes all their salaries and the equipment, commodities, and that kind of thing.
That is correct.
And then we're transferring $110,000 from the general fund
To capital,
to capital. Okay, for vehicle purchase.
yeah,
Okay, so that's A and B.
that is correct.
Okay, I understand.
Any questions or items on A and B?
Nope.
Okay, let's move on to item C, because it is a whole different grambling altogether.
So item C is basically transferring funds from our unreserved general fund. Like we just said, we have 10.2 months of unreserved. And that's what unreserved is for any major purchases. It's one-time items. So we're proposing to actually purchase and install a new public works storage facility. We've done we went out and looked at, we haven't done official bids, but we went out and looked at quotes, what it would cost, what we need, the square footage, everything else, and it comes out to almost about 400,000. It's like 392,000 and so forth. So we're asking to transfer the funds from unreserved general fund to the capital to be able to support that. At the same time, the reason we're doing that is we're looking at doing a demolition of the current facility. We looked at doing renovation of the current storage facility. It was going to cost over $200,000 just to put a new roof on, because our roof is leaking in there.
Which one are you talking about?
It's the one outside over here, Nick, yes. Mhm.
Irons on?
Yes, exactly, that one.
That's what we're talking about.
Right, and I believe when we looked at the records, it was at one point going to be demolished, and then I don't know what happened in the process, why it didn't get demolished, but it was actually set to be demolished several years ago. I know definitely more than 3 years ago, because that's when I've been here, but several years prior to that, and it did not. So we're looking at demoing that, but if we demo that, we have to move all the equipment that's in there into another. And we've also, with Public Works, we have some equipment there, we have some equipment in the garage next to Public Works. We have some equipment, what we call the barn, what is it called? The milk barn, which we also share with animal control. So we have it in a lot of separate different places, because those are the only facilities that we have of right now. So having one space that we can put all this equipment and keep it where it's, out of being weatherproof and so forth. I can't say that that's what's happening over at the current facility because there are leaks and so forth. But at the new one, that's what we're looking at.
So we have increased our equipment. We've gotten a boom truck, we've gotten the shredder, we've gotten some additional equipment so that Public Works can be a lot more efficient in fact, in their department, by the reason why they're lower in cost is because of the efficiencies we have with some of this new equipment. But that's something that's been on the thought board and the wish list for a great number of years. We have a place for it. I know Josh and Corey have been working on. We're looking at a facility, correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, but I believe it was 70 feet by 120 or 130, about 9,100 square feet.
It's actually 70 by 130.
70,
and
130.
It's 1,011 square yards.
That's the
That's
yards
a
of
slab.
concrete.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
that's
that's
a
slab
slab.
concrete.
Yeah, I don't have the square.
It's about 9,100 square feet, and it'll be a slab, and mostly the general design would be looking like a prefab building, so it'll be an efficient, cost-effective, yet good-looking building to handle all the needs of Public Works. And so questions with this, we'll start with Councilmember Massey.
Oh, no, this is long, long overdue. I've been wanting this for a long time. Why it was not done is just because, let's just say that the previous mayor thought that that building was fine. And I never thought it was fine. There's no insulation. It was built 62 years ago on a shoestring. And it's falling apart. And also the fact that it's right there where the fire trucks would have to go through. That was the other reason that I wanted it to go away, because it gives them more room to see and to get out of there. And so it's a safety issue. But yeah, this is something that we definitely need. And I'm glad, talking about the fact that we have this 10.5 months of extra revenue. I've always said a city shouldn't have more than about 6 months of revenue. So this extra money, and I like the fact that we're going to be using some of this extra money to make this purchase for this building. So I think this is a good thing to do, and I'm definitely for it.
Councilmember?
Fully support this. I'm just wondering if 400,000 is enough.
We did a cost estimate and looked at what the building price was, what it cost for that slab for the yardage, also the doors and finish outs. So yes, we feel that this is sufficient.
Okay.
Yeah, this is not going to have like plumbing and, I mean,
It's not, don't think
No, it's a
of office
storage.
finish out and
Right.
judges paneling or anything. Think of this as a storage.
The storage facility.
exactly. Well, having built a house 5 years ago, I know that this is not nearly enough for that. So anyway, when I was electioneering, I've been out the last 2 elections, and when I get bored, I go pick up trash. That's just what I do when I see trash. So I wandered around, and, we have all this equipment, and I said to Craig Sanders, why is all this equipment out here? So I'm so happy to see this as well, because we all know we invest in things and we want to take care of them, right? Like, that's just a basic concept. So I am in support of this. And my other question was going to be, why do we have so many reserves, and what are we going to do with them? So it answered both my questions. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, with no further discussion, all in favor of approving item number 9, parts A, B, and C, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. This time, we're looking for a motion and a second for the second and final reading and action on item number 10 as written concerning the voluntary annexation of land as described in item number 10. Looking for motion?
Mr. Mayor, let's make a motion to read this and take action.
Motion by Burcham to read and take action on item number 10 is written, second by
I'll second that.
Second by Massey. Questions, sir?
None.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Oh, but we have, before,
I just wanted to make one point of clarification. TxDOT contacted City Hall on Monday, and they did inform us that they acquired some of Mr. and Mrs. Arena's right-of-way, so that decreased his total property size. So now the new acreage of his property is 4.5528. So we'll make that revision on the ordinance agreement and then subsequently on the annex, development agreement.
Good with that?
We're good because it decreases. If it had been increasing, we would have had to reset and so forth, but since it decreases, we're fine.
For those wondering, that's because TxDOT is expanding 1560 and they're doing wide right-of-way purchases and clearing for the widening of that road. Again, a complete TxDOT project. Thank you for that clarification and confirmation. I'm sorry, where were we? Who was commenting?
Oh,
You had, Councilmember?
Yeah, no, I just, again, I asked this the last time. No neighbors have said anything about
No,
this.
ma'am.
There's been no, okay, that's fine.
Oh.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, he came in after the public hearings, which would have been the appropriate time to say comments, but up to you if you want to.
Certainly. So no, I understand. And so when I want to actually go ahead and acknowledge your comments and address them. Your property being right next to it, this is a voluntary annexation. That property is being requested by the new purchasers to be annexed into the city of Helotes to pay the Helotes taxes and receive the Helotes services such as police and fire EMS coverage, I guess garbage services, et cetera. So they're annexing. In their desire to do any development will have to be brought before for development agreement and plans and development. But I don't think we have any declared effect to your property whatsoever.
Do you have any comments, sir, or do you thoughts on it?
Which property do you?
If you could come to the mic
Yeah.
so we can hear you.
It is the property that the house burned down. It's, I guess, south of the land. And, well, you know,
Does your
I-
property front 1560? Does it front
Yes.
1560? Is it right
It's the
next door?
next- is
So
the
When you're
next-
driving down, it's on the west side?
As you're driving towards Caleva, you're on the right-hand side, but just past that property, correct?
no, I'm on the left side. I'm on the same side.
Correct, but,
Yeah.
but you're across from TZ Plumbing, but closer towards Calabra from the property that's being
Like
annexed.
if it's going towards Calabria, you're the property right after this.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Right after. Yes, and, you know, I don't, I was out of town last time, so.
Yeah. So this won't affect your property at all. You're not being annexed, so you're still being the ETJ. You will not be part of the city. This property owner requests to become part of the city, so it does not affect your property whatsoever.
Okay. All right, and if I were to request the same thing, well, what benefits would I?
You could talk to staff.
that, yeah.
You could come talk to staff and we
Directly.
could, yeah, after this meeting, I can give you our contact information and then you can come talk to staff about if you would like to look at annexation. Okay?
The taxes would increase, obviously, right?
Well, right now, you don't pay Helotes taxes. So if you were annexed, you would pay Helotes taxes, but
But
you
you
would get the
would-
benefit of the Helotes services. You would get Helotes Police Department as opposed to Bear County Sheriff's. You would get Helotes EMS and fire. You would get access to our waste management contract, our garbage collection contract, and get the benefit of those.
And
So,
tax-wise, actually, I'm sorry,
Oh, yeah,
Mayor.
I'm sorry.
Tax-wise, it actually might probably be the same because you wouldn't be paying ESD taxes any longer and we'll just be paying City of Helotes taxes. So
a little bit of a wash.
little bit of a, yeah.
Right.
So actually, you probably would receive a net benefit because of the
And
services.
you could vote for us.
We'll get
Well,
that.
You know, the other thing is like, I guess it's out of the scope here, but it's water and sewer services.
So water and sewer services would be the same as what you have right now. I'm assuming out there you're on, are you on well out there?
Well, and
Yeah, so you
septic.
would still stay on well unless saws comes through at a later date. But let me recommend, because what your questions are on a different topic and we have to stay on topic.
Sure.
I'll recommend calling over to City Hall and we will help happily give you all the information you need so you can make a decision for your property.
No problem.
Thank you
so
for
much.
coming.
Thank you for coming.
Coming, yes.
All right, do we have any other questions or comments on item number 10?
So we're voting on to
To annex.
annex, okay.
And with no current regard for any developer agreement that is later on down the road.
Okay.
All right, all in favor of approving item number 10 as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. This time, we're looking for a motion and a second to discuss and take action on item number 11 as written, which is also a development and annexation agreement.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we discuss and take action on item number 11 as written.
Second.
Motion by Massey, second by Sones, and by way of clerical, this would adjust the 4.719 acres back down to 4.55
555.
and change acres due to previously discussed right away by TxDOT. So really, we have this is the exact property, but this will be the development and annexation agreement.
Correct.
So I believe motion was by Massey?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Questions?
Okay, so the development agreement is, the developer will be allowed to remove all the existing trees except a portion of the oak trees identified in the middle of the property, which you have the picture there of that. They would be allowed to pay half the required tree mitigation fees owed. Do we know the number?
Yes, it's approximately about 100,000, so they'll be paying approximately 50,000.
Okay. And they will plant back 20% of the lost canopy with minimum 3-inch caliper trees that are on the, okay, within the first 3 years. Okay. I see no problem with it, with any of these terms.
Okay.
So I guess this is a question for Marion. Has this ever been, has a agreement like this ever been signed before? Sorry, my words are getting jumbled up. I'm tired. Has there ever been an agreement like this before?
Is
Is this setting a new precedence?
Well, every agreement is very different, and every agreement sets, so it's not setting a precedent, because every agreement will come to y'all to decide if that's something that you want to agree on particular of that property. So every development agreement we did one at Versatera on Bandera, that was particular to that particular property. We did what we've done in Brycewood. We did one when we did a 380 with the development at Finks. So each one is very different. So no, have we done one like this in particular? No, we have not. But this doesn't, that's why they're development agreements, because they don't set a precedent. You're granting a variance, but through an agreement with that property owner on what you're allowing or not allowing, what you're receiving and not receiving.
So part of, if you remember, we previously discussed some of the types of trees that are being taken out. A lot of it was scrub brush, but it's still subject to mitigation. So in our previous discussions, we looked at some of the trees that were taken out, probably should be taken out anyways. And so that was part of the overall previous debates on what allowances we allow, but still requiring them to pay and still requiring them to place back trees after they get their equipment
And the trees that they'll place back will be a list of allowable trees that will be listed on the development agreement.
Okay.
so we'll be upgrading the trees in that particular instance.
Okay, well, and I drove out there, it was hard to check it out because I'm not property. And the house that's to the right of it is really, when you're facing it, is really rough.
That was the one that burned.
That's
down
the one that
gentleman.
burnt up. That's,
That-
yes.
Okay. So, I could see how the quality, I could visualize how the trees to the edge needed to be taken out. I guess what I don't understand, and I just need clarification because of just being new on council, is if you approve this, I don't want to use the word precedence, but I don't want to use the word fair. Would somebody else come down the road and say, well, if you did it for them, could you?
I mean, that could be said, but the thing is that each development is different, and what that development or that property brings to the city is also different. So it would just depend on who's coming and what they're asking for, if, you know, and if it's part of an annexation, that's usually when we do development agreements, or we do, sometimes we don't, such as the Versaterra on Bandera Oaks. It was a development agreement, but there was no annexation. There were certain things that they wanted to be able to do on that property that our code did not allow. So that agreement allowed them to do those things, such as smaller lots and so forth. And so it just depends on each property.
For example, if it was another property and they wanted to do the same thing percentage-wise, but they had all century oaks, it's a whole different thing than when you're dealing with scrub brush. So it doesn't set the precedent that we say, hey, you let them take out 50% of the scrub brush, let me take out 50% of our century oaks. Different story.
Right.
And that's why they're individual developer agreements that individually have to come before and get approval.
Okay.
So we are not bound to percentages or specific trees or anything on any future agreement by approval of this agreement. This is this particular case, this particular situation with these particular trees and the outcome that we are deciding yes or no on.
Okay, thank you, that's helpful.
I think we recall that, did he say he did like, or he's doing over $1 million in business or something like that?
No, we figured out what his tax base would be. With right now, with his tax, he brings in about, sales tax wise, about 24,000. I mean,
Yeah, okay.
you know, and so that's why.
So $50,000 for getting rid of all these cedar trees and then $24,000
Of sales tax that would
Sales
come back
tax
to the
coming
city.
here.
Mm.
Year after year after year after year after year. This is easy. So I don't want to sound greedy or anything like that, but I mean, we can do good things, more police officers, more whatever we need. So I'm okay with this.
With no further discussion, all in favor of approving item number 11 as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item number 12 is the first reading and discussion on the ordinance of the City Council of the City of Helotes, Texas, continuing municipal code of ordinances, Chapter 58, Article 3, minors, Division 1 curfew to keep the existing juvenile curfew regulations in effect for minors under 17 years of age and over 10 years of age, and providing for triennial review of the ordinance. This is just a reading and a discussion, so we have this ordinance in place as a curfew for that age group. It's reviewed periodically, and so what we're really just discussing is we want to continue this and approve it for
Yes.
review 3 years from now. So we'll just start.
Yes.
Well, you've already started, so let's go ahead and start. Matt, yes, no?
I want to make clear, we're not approving it today.
Gotcha.
We're just discussing it.
Just
If
Just
there's
discussing.
any adjustments you want to suggest.
I think this is a useful tool for the police officers to kind of manage.
Nefarious activities.
Yeah, you know, young kids who like to do dumb things, so this is a good thing. And this isn't like, you know, the minors who get caught up in this, I don't think suffer terribly. They just kind of get a slap on the hand and a little learning tool. So it's not, I'm okay with this.
I think Frank wanted to say something.
Did he, sir?
I just wanted to mention that a bill has been filed with the legislature by Representative David Cook out of Fort Worth area to repeal the city's ability to adopt such ordinance.
Oh, my.
Under,
It would
Because-
eliminate the state law that authorizes cities to adopt.
Who is
to-
doing this?
This is State Representative David Cook out of Fort Worth, and he has filed a bill, HB 1819,
I think,
which would repeal the city's ability, any city's ability to adopt such a juvenile ordinance.
This will be something that will be determined in session this year, whether it actually makes it to being read. But if that passes, well, then we will have to adjust our ordinance at that point, and we can discuss
Right.
that at issue.
What kind of crazy man is he?
I will tell you that it was referred to the Youth, Health, and Safety Committee, and it's been read for the first time, but it's still has not had a public hearing on the bill.
Okay.
There
I
are
can't-
1,000 ways for
I can't
a
see it
bill to
passing.
die and only one way for it to be made. So it faces, as does every bill, there's over 5,000 every year that goes through session.
What's his name?
But we will
again?
see.
David what?
Cook.
David Cook.
Cook. I need to write him a letter.
I'm definitely for keeping this. It's been really good. I mean, I've had teenagers over the years, and it's just another help for parents. You know, they can say, you can't do that. It's against the law, and the police department supports continuing this ordinance. And if you look in the executive summary, it shows that of the citations, in 2022, there were 0 citations and 2 warnings, up and which is way down. So I think this is effective. It's an effective ordinance, and so I definitely would like to extend it.
Okay.
And I agree, as I currently have teenagers, and we have issues with them driving at night with jobs, and they have to, according to the state of Texas, Frank, correct me if I'm wrong in using this, they cannot drive after midnight, between the hours of midnight and 5 a.m. So this ordinance lines up with they can't be driving anyway. So I agree with it. I like that you carve out exceptions for home educators. As a home educator, there's exceptions in the ordinance. So when it was originally written, I think it was really well done. So I'm all for continuing it as well.
No further discussion, all in favor? Well, we're not an action item here, it was just discussion for, it doesn't sound like we have any adjustments to be made, and so it'll come back later on for adoption next meeting. At this point, we're going to adjourn into closed session. Closed session will be in accordance with Texas Government Code, Section 551.074, personnel matters. In addition to the matters listed below, any matter scheduled for open session may be discussed in closed session as appropriate and authorized by law. We will be meeting on 551.074 personnel matters with respect to the appointment, qualifications, and duties of public officers on the City of Helotes municipal boards. We are adjourning 8:08. Temporary for closed session. No decisions will be made. We will be returning shortly. Still not on?
Okay, we're good, Mayor.
Okay. We are back in session. It is 8:22. No decisions were made. At this point, we are going to have the first reading and discussion of the ordinance of City Council of the City of Helotes, Texas, amending Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 5, Planning and Zoning Commission by revising the membership composition and associated number requirement for quorum. In this reading, what we are doing is taking a look at reducing the numbers on this board from 8 to 5. Primary reason is being able to field enough members for quorum for meetings to ensure that we can adequately conduct the business that is brought before it for incoming businesses or residents that have P&Z issues. We need to ensure continuity and consistent meetings without failing for lack of quorum. We'll just go ahead and open up for questions. I'll start at this end and work the other way. Councilmember Stones, do you have any particular questions?
No questions.
Okay, Councilmember?
No questions, just a comment that I think going from 8 to 5 probably brings us in line with all the rest of our boards here in Helotes and those of outlying communities, so.
It does. 8 was a abnormally large number, particularly, it does have some roots historically in bringing in more opinions. Of course, a lot of that time happened when we were building the master development plan of the city. So there's a lot of inputs on there, but back in the 2005-7 range in that arena. But at this point,
Right.
Councilmember Massey?
Yeah, it's important that we have a quorum because the P&Z only meets once a month. And so if there's not a quorum, that 2 months go by, and so some potential business is stymied, and we really can't have that. So 5 members, and as our attachment says, our executive summary, Hollywood Park, Selma, Kirby, Castle Hills, Bandera, and Castroville all have P&Zs with 5 members, and they do quite well. And I think it's a very good thing to do. So that's my opinion.
Okay. Well, there is no action to be taken on this item at this point, and so therefore, that brings us to adjournment. It is now 8:24. We are adjourned.